Hey everybody, Matthew Coller here. We have a trade, even though it's the bye week and there isn't much going on in Vikings land. The Vikings still gave us something to talk about. So the Vikings, according to NFL Network, are sending Stephen Weatherly to the Denver Broncos. They are sending a 2023 seventh round draft pick. The Broncos are sending back a 2022 seventh round draft pick. So the compensation for Stephen Weatherly, we can't exactly say it's very impressive. But this seems to be a move for the Vikings that is just taking one player who was in a spot that was a rotational rushing role and moving him out rather than just straight up releasing him to open up space for other potential younger rushers to come in. So namely, we're talking about Patrick Jones, who was the Vikings' third round draft pick. He'll have an opportunity potentially to be active on game day. He usually has not been active on game day so far this year. Also, a guy who really pushed for a role on this team during training camp and preseason was Kenny Willekes. Remember, he was a seventh round draft pick 2 years ago. He got hurt, and then this year comes back, has a good training camp, a good preseason, ends up on the practice squad, a possibility for him to maybe get elevated to the roster and get a chance as a rotational rusher. Now, back when the Vikings signed Stephen Weatherly, there was a chance he was going to be their starting defensive end. Remember when before Everson Griffin came in, it was Weatherly versus DJ Wanham throughout camp and the vast majority of the preseason. Neither one of them really rose to the challenge, but Stephen Weatherly especially did not. He lost out that job to DJ Wanham, who started in the opening game. Ultimately, though, it's played out that Everson Griffin has been Everson Griffin. He's been terrific and has more or less taken over that starting and full-time role. We still see DJ Wanham mixing in, but we rarely saw Stephen Weatherly in recent weeks. He had just 15 snaps over the last 2 weeks. And in terms of his production, when he did get opportunities, he had 5 pressures in one game. That was against Arizona. No other pressures, according to Pro Football Focus, the whole rest of the season. No sacks, no QB hits, just 5 hurries for his entire production so far for this year. So when they signed him, they thought, well, maybe he'll have to start or we'll rotate in with DJ Wanham. Maybe he'll do what he did in 2019 and have to, rush over the guard or move him around and be kind of a chess piece. Or 2018, when Everson Griffin was out, Stephen Weatherly came in and did a pretty good job. But his recent performances in the NFL overall have just not been great. In Carolina, he played 9 games last year. He did not produce a single sack, still has not produced one this year. So now he'll head off to provide a little bit of depth for the Denver Broncos. It was a little bit of surprise maybe for this trade because the Vikings need as much depth as they can get. They do have good depth on the defensive line, which was showed against Carolina. We saw Armon Watts rise to the challenge with Michael Pierce out. And they have, as I mentioned, some younger players coming in at defensive end, mixing in and out. But this Stephen Weatherly is a guy that has been with the Vikings before. He knows Mike Zimmer's system. He understands the game, but ultimately has been a replacement level player over the last couple of years. So the Vikings move on, and now we'll see who might get some opportunities in Stephen Weatherly's place. All right, there's a quick reaction to a trade for the Vikings. We'll see if there's anything more to come. Some people asked on Twitter, is this opening the door for maybe a little bit more cap space to make some other trade? I would not say that a big blockbuster trade is expected. When GM Rick Spielman spoke to us the other day, he talked about the challenges that go into any sort of trade at the deadline, where you have to bring in a player, acclimate them to your system, and oftentimes you're not able to give that player a full role. Even if it's a good player, even if it's a veteran, it's just hard to do. However, this is the Minnesota Vikings. They are in a year where there's a lot of pressure on everybody. There's expectations. And if you're looking forward, what's coming out of the bye in terms of schedule, there's a lot of tough teams on the slate. So would it be a shock if the Vikings made another move and added another player? Maybe not. And it could depend also on how they feel about the cornerback position and how they feel about Patrick Peterson's health. Remember, he was placed on IR the other day, and they have not shown a whole lot of confidence in Cam Dantzler throughout the preseason and the way Mike Zimmer has talked about his play so far. So maybe the potential for a trade for a cornerback. Maybe there's another tight end trade in the mix. They've already given up a 4th-round pick for Chris Herndon, but outside of a touchdown against Carolina, he has not produced a whole heck of a lot. So you never do know with the Vikings. That's why we'll be here for you, Purple Insider and Purple Insider Extra. So check out our bye-week Bonanza podcasts from the last week, Purple Insider, wherever you get your podcasts, purpleinsider.substack.com for our written work. We'll catch you later.